The Adventures of Anvil Boy. Copyright 2021. Written and illustrated by Thomas Wilson, with much help from Sally Adam. Read by the author, Thomas Wilson.
An anvil is a block of iron and steel used in the process of shaping artistic and useful objects. The anvil, along with the hammer, are widely considered to be the most important tools in modern history. Did you know that unlike babies, who are delivered to the world by storks and found in a cabbage patch, anvils are brought into the world by black iron crows who lift them out of the fire where they are born? Not too long ago, a little anvil was delivered by a flock of the illustrious and mysterious black iron crows. They flew through the mountain passes, ravines, and valleys of the rivers of Styria. They traveled over the treeless Death Mountain Range to Erzberg, the iron ore mountain from which the clever people of Styria have fashioned beautiful objects for over 2,000 years. The illustrious and mysterious black iron crows carried the little anvil for many days and nights, and finally, after arriving at just the right place, dropped him from a great height where he landed horn first in a large pile of cinders, in the backyard of an old blacksmith shop. The blacksmith's son was peeking out from behind the shop door and saw the little anvil fall from the sky. He realized that this particular little anvil must be very, very special. He rescued the little anvil from the cinder pile and carried him into the safety of his father's shop. As the little anvil was brought into the shop, he noticed many of the tools staring at him. The blacksmith's son set him down on an upturned half-barrel near the other anvils. "Who are you?" asked one of the anvils. "I am Anvil Boy," said the little anvil. "I was dropped here by the illustrious and mysterious black iron crows." One of the larger anvils began to say, "That, well, may be true, but we are bigger, more experienced, and superior anvils. We have worked with the master of this shop for many years, and we are very important anvils, unlike you. You should go away. Go and find a master of your own." Then the postvice spoke up in a clear voice. "Don't pay them any heed. They are very rude." She was Emily Postvice, the famous for her impeccably good manners. Conrad Cohn nodded in agreement. Later that night, when everything was quiet, Anvil Boy thought he heard a whisper, and when he listened carefully, he realized that someone was calling his name. "Little Anvil Boy!" As he looked hard through the darkness, he saw what appeared to be a large nugget of coal. The little anvil stared in amazement. The coal started to speak. "I am old King Coal, and I have lived for millions of years. I am the oldest and wisest of the carbon creatures. I know who you are and where you come from. Although the shop anvil was indeed rude to you, I agree that you should go out in the world and have rich and varied experiences. Try your horn at many kinds of jobs and have fabulous adventures. If you do, the world will open up and show you what is most important in life." The next morning, the blacksmith's son walked in and came over to where the little anvil was sitting. "Good morning, Anvil Boy," he said. "Would you like to go fishing with me today?" "What is fishing?" asked the young anvil. "You will see for yourself," said the boy, who then picked him up and carried him to his boat, which was tied to a wooden pier. He set the little anvil in the boat and rowed the small craft to the middle of the bay, where he asked, "How would you like to try your luck as an anchor today?" "What's an anchor?" asked the little anvil. "I will show you," exclaimed the boy, who then wrapped a chain around Anvil Boy before throwing him into the deep water. Anvil Boy was amazed at what he saw under the water. He had never seen fish before, nor all the other beautiful and exotic creatures that surrounded him. He loved being an anchor, and the fish regarded him with great curiosity. He was fascinated by the way they swam around and round. They floated through the water so effortlessly. He wished he could swim with them, but he was made of iron and could only sit on the sandy bottom. Anvil Boy enjoyed the responsibility of being an anchor, keeping the blacksmith's son safely in one place on the surface of the water. That night, old King Cole summoned Anvil Boy to the coal bin. "I have some very important things to tell you," said the coal royalty. "You'll be going on a fantastic journey, and you will try to do things that an anvil has never done before. It would be a great adventure, and you will be changed in many ways that will surpass your wildest dreams. For instance, you will no longer sink like a stone in the water. You will learn how to float. Then you will learn how to float in the air, and eventually you will even fly like a bird. You will use these new skills to make the world a better place. We all have a purpose in life, Anvil Boy," said the old king. "Do you have a purpose?" asked the little anvil. "Yes," said the coal. "My purpose is to become pure energy. I am destined to burn the fires of creativity and art for the good of the world, until I burn up. Good luck to you, Anvil Boy, and remember, there's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be." The next morning, the blacksmith's son came into the shop and asked the little anvil if he would like to go fishing again. "I would love to," said Anvil Boy. "Does this mean I could be your anchor again?" "Of course," said the little boy. "You're the best anchor I've ever had." Anvil Boy was very happy to hear that. The boy rowed out to the middle of the bay, wrapped the chain around the little anvil, and threw him into the water. The fish were very glad to see him, and they were beginning to crowd around him when they heard a splash. Anvil Boy looked up and saw that the blacksmith's son, who was unable to swim, had fallen out of the boat and into the water. Without hesitation, the little anvil floated to the surface. The lad grabbed onto Anvil Boy and held tight. He saved the blacksmith's son from drowning. "Thank you, Anvil Boy," he said. The little anvil knew he now had the powers of which old King Cole had spoken, and with practice he would learn how to use them. The very next day, Anvil Boy started his journey of high adventure and marvelous experiences. Since Anvil Boy could float, the first job he chose was to give ferry rides to the younger animals who hadn't yet learned to swim. He soon realized that he could float through the air, but had to be tethered with a rope in case he flew away. He was hired by a flock of ravens as a test pilot, trying out new wings for the Avian Air Force. He became so skilled at floating through the air that he decided he would hire himself out as a hot air balloon. Anvil Boy found work in a three-ring circus and became internationally famous. He was thrilled by the adulation and applause that he received when he performed as a pedestal for the baby elephants. The beautiful Zablaglione sisters invited Anvil Boy to swing through the air as part of their trapeze act. When Maria Zablaglione tossed him to her sister Rosa, he was in awe of their skill, balance, and coordination, and vowed to return to the trapeze one day. He hovered over the streets of New York and was very impressed with the abundance of ornamental ironwork that he saw on the older buildings, and saw beautiful functional ironwork in the form of gates, canopies, and balconies. During his visit to Europe, Anvil Boy had a snowboard fastened to his base and hit the slopes of St. Moritz. Athletic youngsters jump on his back for an exhilarating ride down the slopes. Anvil Boy worked briefly as a life model at the famous École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. Anvil Boy tried surfing the waves of Hawaii. His weight kept him firmly on the board. Surfing was a lot of fun, but the board rental fees were too high, and he knew this was not the work that he was meant to do. He briefly volunteered in an operating theater, helping art metal surgeons cure stricken acanthus leaves that were suffering from scoliosis. Anvil Boy even performed the Anvil chorus from Il Trovatore with the Berlin Philharmonic. He sang out when the percussionist struck him with a hammer. Many people found Anvil Boy adorable and tried to keep him, but none could hold his interest very long. He was not about to be anyone's pet anvil. Anvil Boy was having a glorious time on his many adventures. He did not know that from high above and far away his every move was being watched. The Lord of the illustrious and mysterious Black Iron Crows were watching everything that Anvil Boy did, and he was not pleased. He decided it was time to pay him a visit. When the Lord Crow arrived, he said to little Anvil Boy, "The Black Iron Crows dropped you behind a blacksmith shop for a reason. Your job should be to work with an iron master and to make beautiful and artistic things." "You are right," said Anvil Boy. "I will return to the blacksmith and see if I can be of service to the master and his son." The blacksmith was very happy to see Anvil Boy return. He was very grateful that the little anvil had saved his son's life, and he showered Anvil Boy with many useful gifts, like an oilcloth to keep himself rustless, and many boxes of fine steel wool. Anvil Boy was also provided with his very own room. He was very grateful to the blacksmith for his kindness. Anvil Boy slept every night in a beautiful old wrought iron bed. He learned the lore and legends of the famous anvils of the past and dreamed of the many adventures that he would have in the future.